you can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet.
Baying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Akos.
You want answers.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall, a separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your hosts on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Akos.
And good evening, good afternoon, good morning, no matter where you're hearing or listening to us right now. You are hearing us live right now here at the Conservative Syndicate, because the way we do things here, it's always prime time somewhere in the world, and you're listening to the nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated, one of the top-ranked internet talk shows out there today, the Conservative Syndicate. I'm your host, John Matthews. Glad to have you with us today. And, as I was doing my posting today, promoting what we were going to be talking about tonight, and as I put the words down in front of me, it just really hit me, really struck me, just how outlandish things have become in this election cycle, and is so demonstrative or illustrative of what is going on in the country per se. Let's just look at the election cycle this time around as a microcosm of what's taking over, what's happening in America. We have at this point, just to hang with me here just for a second here, we have today Donald Trump's campaign manager arrested and charged with battery for apparently roughhousing a Breitbart reporter. I was trying to look up her name today. I don't spend my time majoring into minor stuff. I don't know what her name is. We'll look it up maybe during the break or whatever, because to me it's a minor thing. Some reporter for Breitbart got upset because she was a little bit manhandled and pushed aside, I guess, during one of Trump's rallies, and she filed charges against Trump's campaign manager. And now on top of that, we're dealing with allegations from the National Enquirer that Ted Cruz has no less than 5 mistresses, or has had affairs with no less than 5 mistresses, which would put him right on par up there with, I guess, Bill Clinton, at least the ones that we know about. Of course, I don't believe that for a minute, but I just hang with my madness here for a second. And then on the other side, we have Uncle Bernie, crazy Uncle Bernie, threatening to become perhaps the first publicly avowed Democratic socialist or socialist to run for office. And his rival is none other than Hillary Clinton, who looks like the ever-increasing possibility that the FBI is going to at least recommend criminal charges against her for security breaches and or corruption, using her position in office for personal gain. So here's the makeup of our campaign. And then if you just want to throw in John Kasich, the undercover sleaze that, he's out there trying to portray himself as this above the fray, I'm just this nice, mellow Jeb Bush version 3.0. And you can't tell me that this guy, as a politician, especially a governor, doesn't have his hands in the pot somewhere and isn't getting smeared somewhere or his palms greased. I understand that he's become a millionaire since he became governor of Ohio, so that tells you a whole lot. So there it is, the makeup of today's primary race, and it is such a microcosm of what's going on in the United States as a whole. And what do I mean by that? Well, all these issues that are out there, whether they be assault and battery charges or alleged adultery or corruption, all these things are so apparent in our society today. We citizens have condoned, and some of us even have participated or are participating in such actions. I know my past. If I could spend 3 weeks on this show just talking about my past, some of the things I've done. One of the reasons I never run for office, people sometimes ask me, hey, why don't you run for office? I'm telling you, you know what? I make these other people look like a saint, my past. So, fortunately, through the grace and shed blood of my Lord Savior Jesus, I don't have to worry about that anymore, at least in terms of God. But I certainly would have to go through the gauntlet if I was to enter into public service somewhere. So I'm not even going to attempt to do that. I'll just sit on the sidelines here and just point out everybody else's fallacies, because as somebody who has participated in so many things not good, I can see the writing on the wall without too much effort. So that's what we do here on the show. But so all these things put together. And so what it really comes down to is, once again, I don't even know if we can call this the lesser of two evils kind of contest. It is the which evil are we willing to tolerate in contest. Which one is more evil than the other? And it's just across the board. It's not just down to two candidates. It's all of them. The only reputable person, or apparently the only honest person in the race would be Crazy Uncle Bernie. But who wants Crazy Uncle Bernie running the show? That's not going to work either. So we're going to talk about some of that today. And the way I'm going to talk about it is I'm just going to break it down. I'm going to break down the math, what we have remaining in terms of primaries, and the combinations that could come about. Some of these things are real interesting. We touched briefly on it yesterday, but I'm going to spend a little bit more time on it today, just because the sequence of events yesterday, I didn't get to spend as much time on it as I wanted. But so we're going to do a little bit of that today. And then in the second hour, if you haven't heard yet, the ramifications of losing Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia came to full surface today with the Supreme Court ruling in a labor union dispute and a 4-4 tie. And what that means in terms of how the rulings go is that when the Supreme Court ties, the ruling reverts to whatever the last court, district court, or the last federal court ruled on it. So in this case, it went to in the favor of the unions, and it had to do with union members being mandated to contribute part of their dues to political campaigns, which the unions then turn around and pad the pockets of those candidates, mostly leftists, in their search or in their, to their desire to continue to have the government represent this idea of collective. The unions are again a microcosm of government. You've got a collective. You've got people mandated to be part of a collective that they may or may not want to have been part of, and then having to put money in to support that collective, which is then given to the people in office that are elected in office and receive the campaign money from these unions. So the one hand is always feeding the other. One's always scratching one's back, or if you want to be a little bit more graphic, one doing something to the other all the time. And so that is very indicative of what we're hearing now, or what we're seeing now. This is what's happened since Antonin Scalia passed away, and there's now a vacancy. And you better believe that this is going to be used by the left as more fodder to justify their cry that the Republicans need to confirm Barack Obama's nominee, whoever that be. Right now, it's Merrick Garland, and so it's going to get amped up there. And then, of course, in Georgia, the governor of Georgia vetoing the Religious Freedom Bill that was passed by his legislators last week that exempted or protected Christian organizations in particular, but any religious organization that had a problem with the LGBT civil rights movement through the ruling of the Supreme Court. And the governor's vetoed it, saying that basically Georgia doesn't need such rulings because the Christian faith is not at threat by the LGBT community. So we're going to talk about that. Don Dix will be on me later to talk about the ruling in the Supreme Court, and we'll talk about the governor down in Georgia vetoing the Religious Freedom Act that was passed down there last week by Georgia legislators. So that's kind of where we're going today, and then wherever the thread goes from there, we just let it lead and we follow. So we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll start today's festivities. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, mad prophet of the airways, John Matthews, on a mission from God. And that mission is to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. We do that on this show by preaching what we call the conservative gospel and exposing the lameness of the leftist agenda. I want to touch briefly here on this thing with Trump's campaign manager. Corey Lewandowski was charged today and arrested. Charges were filed by Michelle Fields. I told you I'd look it up during the break. Michelle Fields at Breitbart News Service. And she claims that during one of his rallies that Lewandowski forcefully grabbed her to such a degree that, and such pressure on her arm that there was bruises. And police report verifies, or at least says she had bruises on her arms. At first, there was claims that there was no way of proving it one way or the other. There was no video or anything. And then I guess a video surfaced. And I've seen the video. I watched it last night. And it's really, for me, it's hard to tell what happened. But one thing is for sure, you can see him approaching her, and you can see her turning back and looking at him like, you know, something got her attention and made her turn around and look at him. So I don't know. I don't know where this is going, but this is really, I guess this falls in line with something I said earlier. I've said it earlier, maybe it was last week. It's amazing to me how the minor stuff gets all the major headlines. I was talking about how, you know, I go out on Facebook every day and I try to find the most controversial and important issues to post on my page. And 9 times out of 10, if I put something out there that's just really minor, trivial, like I've had a thread now going on my page now for over a week over this stupid Facebook photo of Melania Trump that got put out there by a super PAC that is an anti-Trump. See, we need to verify this stuff. It's not a pro-Cruz PAC. It is an anti-Trump PAC. And so this PAC put out a picture of Melania Trump, as you probably know by now because it's been beaten into the ground by the media. And it was some pose that she did on CQ magazine, I guess, a few years ago. And it says something like, this could be our next first lady, or you could vote for Ted Cruz, something like that. And the implication is, of course, you know, Trump has a porn star for a wife. I've heard her called that. And it's just like, and so Trump starts this little Twitter war, which escalates into this all out and out, you know, tit for tat thing where Ted Cruz finally gets in front of a camera and says, basically, you know, Donald, I want to kick your ass kind of thing. And Trump is just, you know, playing it for all it's worth. Just, you know what, hey, she started it, you know, that kind of thing, like 2 wrongs make a right when it deals with Donald Trump, you know. And so this thing, and this has been all over the place. It's been all over. Even the other night, I was listening for a few moments because I can't stomach Hannity too long anymore. But for a few moments, and he was beginning an interview with Donald Trump. Oh, no, it was last night. I'm sorry. And he was talking with Ted Cruz. He says, well, you know, I don't want to make a big deal about this thing that's been going on with the photos and everything, but, and then proceeds to go into a conversation about this picture. So it's kind of like, even when the media is trying to apologize for what it is they're doing, they're still doing it. And the reason they're still doing it is because people are more concerned with this crap than what's going on with these 2 candidates in terms of foreign policy. Like, why hasn't anybody from any of the campaigns at this point in time, I've heard nothing from any of them, including the Obama administration, that over the Easter weekend, there were 65 Christians bombed in Pakistan. That a suicide bomber targeted Christians in Pakistan who were celebrating Easter, and 65 of them were killed. We haven't heard a peep about this from anybody outside of I saw one article on it the day after Easter. But neither campaign is talking. No campaign is talking about it. Barack Obama's not talking about it. Nobody's saying anything about it. This is a major issue, on par with anything that's happened in Brussels, Paris, or anywhere else. Because why? Because it points to the fact that these terrorists, these ISIS guys and gals, don't care about anything or anybody. And so if we're going to argue policy and we're going to argue about stereotyping and profiling Muslims and all this other stuff, don't you think we should be giving some time to the fact that Christians are also suffering from this stuff? But that's not happening, see, because everybody's worried about Melania Trump's picture or what Ted Cruz is his alleged allegations from National Enquirer. When did National Enquirer become a credible source for anything? Unbelievable. I think they got some kind of brownie points back during the O.J. Simpson trial because they came up with some story, and all of a sudden everybody started looking at them like they were some kind of credible force. I mean, these are people that talk about the aliens coming down and shopping at the mall, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's unbelievable the credibility that's been given. Why? It's not because the National Enquirer is credible. It's because it's something that the media can throw out there and it distracts, and everybody's going, ooh, the hypocritical Christian out there banging women on the side and all this other kind of stuff. That's all it is. It's a sensationalism. And what it does is it alleviates any guilt that American citizens have that are probably out doing the same thing in mass. We got the church has a divorce rate equal to those outside the church. We have our own scandals that are on par with anything else that's going out there. Ministers involved in homosexuality and having affairs and corruption, stealing money from their congregants and all this other stuff. And so it alleviates the guilt when you can point the other, when you're, as Jesus said, you're going to cast that first stone because you're without sin, right? It's that paradigm that we judge others by their actions and ourselves by our intents, that kind of thing. And this is why we have what we have today. This is why we're looking at the situation we're looking at today, the most important election perhaps in our history, perhaps since the Civil War. And what are we worried about? Somebody's wife posing in a magazine when all hell is breaking loose all around us. Allegations, putting pixelated pictures of women in there saying, oh, these are the ones that Ted Cruz is out there having an affair with or has had affairs with. You put pixelated pictures out there for one reason, because you don't want to identify the women because you don't know for sure. Everything is allegation. Allegation becomes fact instantaneously in our society today. All you got to do is just imply something. And yet now we sit on the other side where we have the Democratic candidate has been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt, has been documented that she has broken security protocol, running for the highest office in the land, commander-in-chief, has willfully broken security protocol, has obstructed anybody finding it out, and is also now involved in an investigation for using her position as Secretary of State for personal gain, selling secrets for money, endangering her private server to hacking so that our security is compromised, doing deals that have involved shipping uranium from a U.S. uranium mining company up to a shell company in Canada, ended over with rogue uranium developers in Russia who are making deals with Syria and Iran. And that's all allegation. When you hear the media report about it, well, it's just allegation. It's been documented. This stuff has been documented, but that's not fact. No, the media plays that as an allegation. Far right-wing conspiracy, concocted scandals, all this other stuff. And then these little things that mean absolutely nothing at this point in the game become the major headlines, and people are changing their votes, or people are making their decisions based on a magazine that has no credibility as a journalistic integrity, or a centerfold spread in a magazine somewhere else. And this is what's gauging your decision, who you're going to vote for. God help you. God help you. And we deserve what we get if we allow this to continue down this path. It's sickening. There's nothing that pisses me off more than willful ignorance and denial, because you want to make yourself feel better about what's going on. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. So anyway, I'm getting off on one of my white man rants here, but so be it. I said I was going to talk about the delegate math. I found this article the other day. I was just totally mesmerized by it because somebody really did their homework here. And let me get it up here in front of me. Let me scroll down here. Okay, let's get it in front of me here. Where is it at here? Let me get down here. It's down here in my notes, way, way down here. I should have moved all this other stuff from yesterday that I'm not using today, but I didn't do that. So I got to scan. Okay, here we go. The delegate math. Arizona, Utah, and Idaho voted on March 22nd for who they wanted to be Democratic nominee for president. While Hillary Clinton walked away with Arizona, Bernie Sanders won both Utah and Idaho. And then over this past weekend, Bernie Sanders, I believe, swept all three caucuses that were out there. And I don't know that it's really going to matter in terms of how the Democratic establishment is going to ensure that Hillary Clinton gets elected through superdelegates. But it is interesting that Bernie's not going down without a fight. And so one of the things that this article I'm looking at here, this came out of, where did this come from? I think it came out of USA Today. I didn't put the reference on here. But it was written by a guy named, Kicker. I guess Kicker was the website here. All right, now, let me break this down for you. They gave a really nice schematic here as to how all this works. At current, I guess we'd have to change this to modify what Bernie's did over the weekend. But at the breakdown right now, Hillary Clinton has 1,456 delegates. She needs 2,383 to get the Democratic nomination. Bernie Sanders, at last count, she needed about 702 to be able to win. Now, Bernie Sanders, with the delegates that he got over the weekend, has somewhere now around 1,100. And he needs a little under 700 to win to be able to get to, he needs a lot more than that. Okay. But what kicks into this thing, what goes into this thing is the superdelegates. 712 superdelegates. Currently, there's 712 superdelegates, I'm sorry. And these are Democratic Party leaders who can support any candidate. They're not beholden to the voters. And what these normally are, we talked about that on this show quite a bit. What they normally are they are elected government officials within respective states, or they're operatives, people that work for elected officials or the DNC. And they all have their little gigs going, whether it be re-election or organizations or whatever. And the DNC feeds them money to keep them in their pocket. So they're not beholden to any of the voters, and they can vote wherever they want. The current standing is Hillary Clinton has 467 of these 712 superdelegates. Bernie Sanders has 26, and there's still a hunk out there that hasn't said one thing one way or the other. So what we're having here is this conversation now about whether Bernie Sanders is going to be able to approach these superdelegates and get them to swing his way. Some of them, which already have begun to say, you know what, my constituents, my people, some of the superdelegates on the left are saying, you know what, my people don't want me to vote the way the establishment wants me to vote. They want me to go for Bernie. So there's a mix up there and some things going on there that we want to take a hard look at here, which we're going to do here right after the break. The Republican delegates is a different story, and the combinations here. And so I'm going to give you some numbers here as soon as we get back from the break here. Break these numbers down a little bit more for you. total number of votes cast in the primaries and caucuses so far, how this all equates, especially on the GOP side. It's really interesting math to look at. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. We got to run our next set of commercials here. We'll be right back, and don't go away.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Attention taxpayers! If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by CitizensUnited.org.
we're back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, mad prophet of the airways, and I was talking about the delegate math here, trying to get back to something of more substance rather than whose wife is posing where and whose husband is messing around with who knows how many women out there. You know, I don't know how much of this stuff is really, none of it's relevant. I don't know how much of it's true, how much of it's spin. I was hearing the other day something along the line of one of Donald Trump's people, last name was Stone. I don't know what his first name was. I don't remember. Is the guy that started this National Enquirer thing. Basically claiming that he's hired investigators, and the investigators have found what they believe to be allegations, you know, and in today's media, that's all you have to do. You don't have to go out and say, hey, you know what, we did this and this is what we found. By the way, we got recordings, we've got video, we've got pictures or whatever. You know the way they used to have to do things? You had to prove things before you went out and made accusations. You don't have to do that anymore today. And again, to me, it's just a reflection on what we see in our society as a whole, is that while we're pointing the finger at somebody else and we're snickering and everything else, many of us are guilty of the very same thing. But it doesn't feel as bad when you got somebody running for the highest office of the land who is just as crooked, corrupt, and immoral as perhaps some of the things you're doing or have done in your past. So I just always remember that saying. Somebody said to me, we always judge other people by their actions, and we judge ourselves by our intent. And there's nothing, that is the definition of hypocrisy, in my opinion. So getting back to the delegate math here, and I checked my numbers here at the break here just to make sure that I knew what I was talking about, because this article I'm reading from is a few days old now, and it first came out just before the primaries that took place over the weekend. The caucuses, the Democrats had 3 caucuses over the weekend. So right now, give you the breakdown here. The Democratic candidate needs 2,383 delegates to win the nomination here. Hillary Clinton, as of today, has 1,712 delegates, and that includes 469 of these superdelegates that we've talked about on the show. Superdelegates are people that are assigned the position of a delegate, but they're not beholden to anything that the voters want, either at a caucus or an actual primary. They can vote wherever they want. And they're usually operatives, organizers, and elected officials within the respective states. The DNC funnels money to these people to keep them in their pocket. So right now, 1,712 for Hillary Clinton, and 469 of those are superdelegates, okay? So Bernie Sanders did well over the weekend, I guess. He's now had 1,004 delegates, and he has 29 of these superdelegates. So at the current, there are still 2,049 delegates available between the remaining primary and caucuses for the Democrat Party and the remaining superdelegates that have not yet chosen who they're going to go for. So that's where we're at on the left. And that's pretty simple to understand because we've got 2 candidates here. But on the GOP side, it gets a little bit more intricate just because we have at least 8 candidates that have delegates. And you say, well, there's only 3 people still in the race. Yes, there are, but there are 5 that have suspended their campaigns, not withdrawn from the race. And so those delegates are still assigned. Some of them 1 delegate, as low as, I think, Carly Fiorina has 1 delegate. Rand Paul, I think, has a couple of delegates. Ben Carson has 8 delegates. George Bush had over 100 delegates. And Marco Rubio had 169 delegates, something like that. I don't think Jeb Bush had over 100 delegates, but he had some. Marco Rubio was the one I was thinking of, 169 delegates, and he suspended his campaign. And so those delegates are still obligated towards those candidates, even though they're no longer in the race. So if we break it down from the Republican side here, we have 1,237 delegates are needed to confirm the majority of delegates that are out there. And there's still 944 of these delegates up for grabs right now, okay? Donald Trump right now has, let's see here. What's the name here? Okay, Donald Trump has 739 delegates as of today. He needs 498 to lock up the majority of 1,237. Ted Cruz has 463 delegates, and he needs 772 of the 944 that are still up for grabs. So that mathematically, when you start looking at this thing, you say, well, the feasibility of Ted Cruz taking enough delegates to win is pretty low. It's even worse when you look at Kasich. I think Kasich is out of it just mathematically, just not possible for him. He has to win something like 105% of the remaining delegates to be able to win the 1237 majority. But that's not what Kasich's game is, and we'll get more into that in a little bit here. So, yeah, Kasich needs 1,094. There's only 944 still available, so mathematically he's out. Okay, now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting in terms of delegates. Trump is in the lead right now, but he has won less delegates than all the other delegates put together, the ones that we're not even looking at right now, of those candidates who have suspended their campaign. That's an interesting number, because if nobody gets to 1,237, and if the establishment does what everybody believes they're going to do, and they're going to take this convention to either a contested convention, where the candidates are saying, you know, I have enough votes here that you should really give me this. That would be either Cruz or Trump. And they just basically what they do is they have the candidates, the delegates then vote again or whatever, and then majority, whoever gets close to the majority, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's the way that works. Or a broker convention, which Kasich is looking at, and that is if that would come into play if the RNC just declares no winner because nobody took the majority, and they do something really astronomically stupid, like throw out the rules, which is being floated out right now. They're just either the RNC would change the rules or just throw them all out. They're going to go to what they call Robert's point of order and basically throw all the delegates into one room and hash it out. And however many votes it takes, how many times they have to vote to get a clear nominee, that's what they're talking about doing. Well, that's political suicide, but the establishment is floating the idea because they know that a Trump candidacy, and maybe even a Cruz candidacy for that matter, although Cruz is kind of bending, I'm not going to go into that right now. I'll get off the topic here. But the point being is that a Trump candidacy threatens their very existence, because Trump is not only part of the establishment in the fact that he plays the game, the money game, but he's also, like you said, a player. He's a player, and he knows what's going on out there. He knows how to use that for leverage. Okay, so what we have here then is that Donald Trump has the most delegates right now, but he also, combined with the other delegates of the other candidates, all the other candidates, he has less delegates. So if all these other delegates, like let's say the other delegates that are out there, all through their count into the Cruz camp, and this could happen. Jeb Bush could throw his in there because he's already endorsed Ted Cruz. Ben Carson would probably throw his 8 delegates into Trump because he endorsed Trump. I don't know if Christie has any, but Christie has endorsed Trump. So his 1 or 2 delegates, if he has them, I don't even know how many he has, if he has any, for that matter. He could throw those into the Trump basket. Carly Fiorina, I believe, has 1 delegate. She could toss that over to Cruz because she's endorsed Cruz. Marco Rubio hasn't endorsed anybody right now. That's a hunk of delegates right there. If he threw them into the Cruz camp, boy, that'd really tighten the race up real fast. So in terms of the delegates being redelegated, a lot could happen that way. And I think that's what Cruz is banking on. Cruz is banking on this unification measure. You know, the Romney has come after him and said, yeah, okay, we got to go with Cruz. The Bushes have endorsed Cruz. Lindsey Graham has endorsed Cruz. You know, not that they have any real power, but their name lends some credibility to a unification effort by the establishment to pull in behind one candidate. And so that could work to Cruz's advantage if all these other delegates somehow, or the majority of them, got tossed into his basket, and it would make it a much tighter race, much more probable than when we get to the end as to whether or not Cruz could pull in a 1237 majority that way. Now, I got to go to a break here, and I want to get into the actual number of voters, because this is where I've been paying my attention to. This is what has caught my eye and why I think it's so astronomically stupid if the establishment decides to self-destruct in the name of self-preservation of the establishment. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. I was going to say Community Syndicate. The Conservative Syndicate. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Hey, we're back. And you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I do want to remind everybody, we have a website out there, theconservativesyndicate.net, and you can go to that site anytime you want, 24/7. You can pick up copies of this show or any of the shows that we do. You can find our bios on our panel members, the people that contribute to our show. Anything that you want. Some of us write. I write every now and then. Haven't written in a while, but I do blogs once in a while. Joe Hakos, my co-host, who's out on medical leave right now. Medical leave right now. Writes. Dr. Karen Sigmund from Rage Against the Media. She has things that she puts out there every once in a while. And, so go to our website. Check us out, theconservativesyndicate.net. All right. As promised, let's get into the math here. The rest of the math. I broke down the delegate count to you and how, on the GOP side at least, what we could see is if there was enough consensus and they were able to pull over somebody like Marco Rubio and he threw his delegates into the pot with Ted Cruz, and let's say even John Kasich finally comes to, somebody taps him on the shoulder and says, hey, the dream is over, dude. You're not going to make it. But Kasich is banking on the brokered convention. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for the RNC to throw the rules out or to change the rules and say, you know what, we're going to start this thing from scratch. And then he thinks he can go in and snowball everybody and get everybody to vote for him because he believes he's going to have the most momentum at the end of this thing. So he's kind of like, everybody will forget about the fact that I've only won one primary my entire time in this race, and they'll all of a sudden just look at me and go, oh, this is the most electable guy. He's the most electable compared to when put against Hillary Clinton. And there's a reason for that, because he is just the male version of Hillary Clinton, his own admission, by his own admission. Oh, I'm the best choice between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. That's out of Kasich's mouth. So and Kasich is as establishment as they come. I mean, this guy, if you put him next to Jeb Bush, you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So, okay, let's get into the numbers here. Let's get into the numbers. As they said, there's a way, this is one way with the delegate count that Trump could lose if it comes down to the other candidates taking all their delegates, or at least enough of them, and throwing them into the Cruz bucket, that he has a number very close to what Trump has as they come into the end of June, when the convention is going to be held. June 7th, I believe, is the last primary. So at that point in time, we're going to know what's going on. I believe the convention is June 29th, or it might be the first week of July, somewhere in there. End of June, beginning of July, they all going to meet down in Cleveland, and they're going to choose who's going to be the guy, who it's going to be. Now, so delegate count, that could happen, and it could work in Cruz's favor. Now, when we look at the actual numbers, what we have here, well, let me give you the numbers and the totals for the delegates so you understand what I'm saying here, even or not that you don't understand. Let me just drive the point home. Right now, Trump has 739 delegates. Okay, if Ted Cruz was to get, just say, Marco Rubio and John Kasich, the number of delegates that they have, he'd have 700. Ted Cruz would have 772, which is a greater number than Trump's 739. That's what I'm saying there. That some combination like that. Okay, now look at here with the popular vote. The popular vote. We have here Trump has pulled in 7,811,245 votes between all the primaries and caucuses that he has held, that he has been, he's participated in. Boy, why am my mouth not moving right at this moment? Okay. Cruz, Rubio, and Kasich, and they're using them because they have the biggest delegate count between all the remaining candidates, have garnered 11,972,440. Now, here's the argument from especially the Cruz camp. This is the argument. Collectively, there are more people voting against Donald Trump than there are for him. And so his strategy at this point is to unify all these voters behind him, because the math tells us that it's either going to be Donald Trump or Ted Cruz. They completely factor out the fact that the RNC might go for the broker convention, at what point John Kasich's votes and delegates become a whole different entity, because that Kasich is going to be pitching for the nomination through the usurpation and the circumventing of the RNC rules. So, but the number of voters, though, that points to something that people have to look at. On the other hand, should the RNC go about this self-destructive route of saying, okay, we're going to toss everything out and we're going to pick the people that we have, now we have a major problem, because what will happen is Donald Trump supporters, for the most part, they're not going to jump on anybody else's ship. It's like with Rand Paul and Ron Paul. The libertarians aren't out there in mass going, oh, gee, Rand Paul was eliminated from the race, so I'm going to jump on the Trump camp. Because a lot of the libertarians don't like what's going on in terms of what's going on with Trump in the first place, okay? And they're not going to jump with Cruz, because Cruz at this point now looks like a neocon, because he's teamed up with some of the establishment figures out there, the icons, the Romney, Bushes, and people like this. So the libertarians aren't going to go that route. So they're going to do one of two things. Well, some of them will go with Trump because they like the idea of a hard-talking anarchist, that kind of thing. That's what libertarians believe in. But a lot of these people are going to do what? They're going to go back to sitting on the couch. Trump, to his credit, has brought people to the polls. And unless some kind of unification, if Trump is even close to winning this thing and the RNC steals this from him, all those votes, the vast majority of those votes, are going to go out to lunch. They're not going to vote. They're not going to go out and vote. And let me give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. At this point in the game, Hillary Clinton has garnered 8,907,556 votes. Sanders has 6,355,291. Okay, so combined, that's about almost 16 million votes. When we look at the other side of this, it's almost, about 19 million, almost 20 million people have voted in the Republican primaries and caucuses. So that's a 4 million vote difference. And I don't need to remind you that Mitt Romney lost in 2012 by less than 1 million votes. So if we say that a lot of these Trump voters, let's say 2/3 of these Trump voters just go back to saying, you know what, I was going to vote for the first time in my life or the first time in 20 years because I just like Trump. I like his audacity. I like his rhetoric. He doesn't back down. He doesn't apologize. That's what we need right now. And those people who are so excited to do that, they say, screw it. If I got to vote, if I got to choose between Cruz and Kasich or Paul Ryan and Mitt Romney ticket or whatever, I'll just go back to doing what I was doing before, and that's doing nothing. The same thing in the Clinton camp. If the people that are supporting Bernie Sanders, and many of them are out there saying, if Sanders doesn't get the nomination, I'm not voting. I'm not voting for Clinton. She represents everything that I don't like. So if a majority of them, 4 million of those people stay home. And now what we've got here is we're going to be right back to the same numbers that we had in 2012, and it's going to be another close election. It's going to be decided by electoral votes in the state rather than popular vote. And so we're right back to, once again, the lesser evil, and the system remains intact, and everything else just stays the same. And maybe we end up with a shift in the Senate, well, that won't happen if the Trump nomination comes along. But my point being is that at this point in time, it all goes back to normal. And so we're right back where we started from. That's what could happen. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying it could happen if the Republican Party decides to self-destruct. The establishment says preserving my wealth and power is more important than the country. We got to go to break here. We're at the top of the hour. It is time for the Edwards Notebook. And in next hour, we'll have Don Dix. We're going to be talking about Supreme Court ruling today and the vetoing of the Religious Freedom Act in Georgia. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away.
I was a little boy growing up in Cleveland. My dad often talked about loyalty to family and loyalty to country. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards on today's page from the Edwards Notebook. If there are inner squabbles within a family or nation, the last thing a family leader like a dad or president of a nation should ever do is publicly proclaim that they welcome criticism from one of their biggest enemies. But that is exactly what President Obama did during his visit to Cuba. To quote Mr. Obama, quote, I actually welcome President Castro commenting on areas he feels we are falling short. Unquote. I find this totally not right, considering that Cuban leaders are brutes who lock up citizens for going to church and have totally decimated the Cuban economy. Obama doesn't need any help in ruining the U.S. economy, by the way. Besides, Cuban leaders annually school Congressional Black Caucus members on how to dismantle American life through disruption and deception. Mr. Obama's faulty judgment is a sad reflection of the bad judgment that American voters made in the last presidential election. Prayerfully, the next choice made for U.S. president will actually benefit our republic, who, for starters, would be loyal to America. I'm Ron Edwards.
Catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Hey, all you can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet.
Baying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall, a separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your host on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos.
And we are back, and you are indeed listening to the Conservative Syndicate Hour 2, coming to you live right now, coast to coast and around the world. Nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated, and we're glad to have you with us. I'm going to bring on our contributor here, Don Dix from Act for America. I'm glad he tuned in early today. Help me catch a breather here after that first hour, just spinning all those numbers out there as to how this primary can come down. So how are you doing, Don?
Lost you there, John.
Oh, yeah. What was that? Was that your plane taking off?
I think so. I don't know. I'm definitely inbound into Casa Dix. Traffic was a little bad, but I'm with you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, I didn't... you're calling in from your car right now?
But yeah, I'm calling in from... I'm mobile. I'm wherever you need me to be, John.
Oh, okay. Okay. These days, who the hell knows, you know? It's just...
Hey, we're about the business of saving the republic. We don't have time to figure out conveniences.
Yeah. Well, we spent the first hour breaking down the delegate math here as to how this thing could go on both sides. The little idiosyncrasies that could play into this thing, like, for instance, Marco Rubio and some of the other people out there throwing their delegates over to Ted Cruz. On the left, we got the situation with the superdelegates. There's a lot of superdelegates right now. I'm hearing rumors that some of them are getting ready to bail off the Hillary Clinton ship because of the pending investigation here with the FBI and all the other stuff that's going on. So it's I think it's still pretty much a crapshoot, and probably will be until this next set of primaries pass us by, one way or the other. But I wanted to two of the topics here that I wanted to talk with you about. I don't know how well versed you are with what's going on down in Georgia with the Freedom Religious Act that was passed by the legislators down there last week, and then vetoed by their governor.
And then vetoed by the governor. Yes.
Yeah. Are you up to snuff on that?
Well, to the extent that, I read about it. I understand a little bit about what went into the thinking, what the four elements of the bill were, and the very bizarre statement by governor as to why he federal.
Okay, I'm picking up. I've got an internet connection problem here. Are you there? Okay, we're going to have to hang up here. Yeah, we lost Don here. So let's see if we can get him. Let's see if we can get him back on. And something happening with the internet there. Oh, well, this is what's happening since our net neutrality has been kicking in. This is part of the problem we've been having. Internet speeds are just randomly going to hell whenever they feel like it, and we find ourselves going through situations like this, right in mid-call here, and we're dropping. So let's see what's happened. Let's see if we can get Don back on the line here. Are you back, Don?
I am. Did we lose each other?
Yeah, I had something happen with my internet. I think somebody's throttling my speed out here. It happens every now and then. With this net neutrality thing on here, we got all kinds of weird things going on. So anyway, back to the Georgia situation.
So yeah, you asked me if I was familiar. I'm not sure where I dropped off, but I listened to one of the Georgia legislators from the House explain why, he was one of the architects of the bill, how it evolved from just, protecting essentially the religious liberties of clergy to incorporate other elements, which ultimately I think were the downfall of this. And they went after too much too quick, in my estimation.
Right. Yeah, the big argument that I was seeing out there in cyberspace, and I was commenting on this at the very beginning of the show, how our electorate is getting so good at majoring into minors. So much stuff out there about things like whose wife is in GQ magazine and the alleged affairs and all this other stuff, and everybody just shifts completely away, and something like this happens, and it's not even on anybody's radar. But what I'm hearing out there in cyberspace is everybody going, they're getting into the discrimination argument from businesses, saying, okay, well, there should be any discrimination from businesses. And the bill, I'm reading the bill. I read the bill. It's 5 pages. It's not that bit complicated. And it specifically had targeted religious officials, people that perform marriage ceremonies, perform rites, administer sacraments, and things like that. And then I think where it got caught up into where the snag came from that you're talking about is that it got talking about organizations in terms of days off, determining what days off they have in terms of religious holidays and stuff like that, and that they were going to be able to preserve that. And in there, you started getting into the IRS code and the corporate structure and all this other kind of stuff. So, you might be right there. That might have been it here. Instead of just keeping it pointed at the one issue here, because we knew that's where it's going, isn't it? We start out with bake shops and florists, and now pretty soon it's going to be, okay, we're going to force churches to perform marriages.
Well, right, and the thing that happened was, once the sort of activist element of the LGBTQRXYZ organizations got involved in it, and they pulled in, Coca-Cola and the NFL, and
right.
on and on and on. All of a sudden now, see, and you hit on something really quick. Americans, by and large, have gotten to this place where they're consuming headlines. And so everybody's all tangled up with the latest news bite of what's unfolding in the soap opera of our presidential elections, the Lewandowski thing, the picture thing. And we're missing important, signposts of the destruction of Western civilization. Lost in the shuffle is also the fact that the UN Human Rights Council voted on the 24th to condemn Israel as the most egregious abuser of human rights. This stuff is happening, and America's fixated on the soap opera of this election, not to mention the fact that we have Republicans and conservatives engaged in this circular firing squad, and we've taken our eye off the enemy. The enemy is the 7 years of the legacy of the Obama administration. It's Hillary Clinton being unfit for her, to take the position of commander in chief on any number of levels. And this issue, in Georgia, what do we have, like 25 or 30 states that already have these things in place?
Right.
And yet Georgia came under the microscope, and it got obfuscated. And what the activist element of the LBGTQ, I can't even keep track of the an acronym anymore. What they brought to bear was economic pressure. And see, this is where conservatives are losing the battle, because we don't organize. We don't provide a uniform voice to bring pressure back on these issues. The left does it so well, and absent an AWOL and somewhere in the witness protection program are conservatives that aren't paying attention, aren't organized to push back on this stuff in order to preserve the basic rights that are embodied in the Constitution. This is my entire rant of the show I did today. We are no longer citizens responsible for keeping the republic. We think voting once is the issue. And here's my fear, John. After this, I know we segued away from Georgia, but this election, people are putting so much faith into individual personalities, whether it's Trump, Cruz, Kasich, or even on the left. We've lost sight that this is only an election. This is just an election. And after the election is over, we are going to have to continue to be citizens of the United States, and we're going to have to continue to keep the republic. And for all the good Donald Trump may have done in terms of getting people off the couch, bringing new Republicans to vote, if those people get disappointed and go back into the witness protection program, we've gained no ground.
Oh, well, yeah, obviously. What's that noise?
Oh, that's me. I'm just backing the car up.
Oh, okay. All right. I get that, because that was one of the things I was breaking down with the numbers earlier. The fact that Trump has accumulated over 7 million voters throughout the primaries and caucuses up so far. The other candidates, if we just take Cruz, Rubio, and Kasich, they've done over 11 million. There's a 4 million vote spread there. But if Trump is robbed of the nomination, should he win it or be close to it, and he's robbed from it, 2/3 of those 7 million are going to go away. The same thing we're looking at on the other side. Hillary has about 8 million, and Sanders has about 6 million. Okay, now, if the Sanders people, I'm hearing the Sanders crowd is saying the same thing. If Sanders doesn't get the nomination, I'm not voting. So what we do is we come back down to a classic Clinton-Bush type of thing, where just the establishment people are the ones out there voting. And we just end up with the same thing all over again. And everything, all the advancement that has been made in terms of bringing people into the process, they're just going to go back on their couches, like you said. They're not going to do anything. And we're just going to be subject to the same thing all over again. It's just going to be repetition. And we're going to be right back where we're at. We're going to have whoever wins the White House. We're going to still have the split in the Senate. There's enough seats in the Senate at threat right now. Who knows where that's going to go? If the Senate goes back to the left and we got the House majority, we're right back into the standoff, and now the narrative shifts back to a Congress that doesn't do anything. And so it's just repetitive, and people just, after a while, people just get worn down, And it doesn't really matter what they're doing anymore in terms of government. It's everybody's just, okay, let's just bend over and get ready. I mean, what else are you going to do, you know?
And when you talk about the establishment, this, I think, ultimately is the goal of the establishment, to wear out good citizens so that they can continue to maintain the power structure that they have and expand the breadth and reach of government.
Yeah, exactly. I got to interrupt you here. We got to go to our break here. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Don Dix from Act for America. We got a lot more for you here, because this one topic here on this religious act here. I got a lot of things I want to say about it too. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Okay, hey, we're back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, and I've got with us Don Dix, one of our Conservative Syndicate panel contributors. We're talking about the situation out here in Georgia, this ruling by the governor out here, the vetoing of a bill that was passed. It was designed to protect churches, religious organizations, from having to get involved in such things as performing homosexual marriages and things of that nature, contrary to their religious beliefs. I thought the argument that the governor himself offered on this was beyond lame. His argument was simply something along the lines of, we don't have to worry about this. we don't have to worry about the LGBT community coming after our churches. And my first thought right off the top was, well, if that's the case, then why were we arguing about bakers that didn't want to bake cakes and florists that didn't want to provide flowers? I mean, if it was really that simple, why are we even having this debate in the first place? Because that's what brought it on. The law coming out after people are saying, I don't care if people want to come into my bakery and order a cake. And I don't care what they do in their bedrooms and everything else, but you want me to bake a cake for a homosexual wedding, what you're asking me to do is participate in that, and I don't want to do it. Now, the way the left has always worked has been give them an inch and they'll take a mile. And so this whole, and I want to get your opinion on this, Don. My take on this whole thing, this whole LGBT thing, outside of the political pandering to a demographic, which is, that is really why anybody on the left would want to even have anything to do with this. It's the idea or the concept of the fact that they don't like anybody being able to voice opposition to what it is they do. It's that alleviation of guilt and conviction, doing something inherently that is immoral and against the way your creator designed you, and where they don't want people telling them that. That is, to me, the ultimate objective. What do you think?
Well, I think it goes even deeper than that. I think, you're right. I mean, they don't want people, questioning the morality of their personal life decisions, and really, and that's not even what this is about. But it goes for this. I think it goes even deeper, because I think what you have also at play here is that the agenda of the LGBT community is, if you walk it back to its origins, this is about breaking down the building block of the nuclear family that makes America strong. If you want to know what it was that made America strong, it was the fact that we had a wildly independent, self-sufficient family unit. And that was the building block of the community. And that in turn built cities, and that in turn built states, and that in turn ultimately built a strong, country, because at the core of what we're about as a democratic republic, as a nation of laws that keeps government in the box, puts the citizen on top of the pyramid of the hierarchy of government. In order to break this down and flip it around, they have to go after the family unit. And that's what ultimately this is about. And the family unit was based on living according to a set of principles, so morality. So you go after things like the family, and I thoroughly think that a big part of the welfare state is an attack directly on the family. It's to make families dependent on the government, remove this ability of a family to take care of itself and put it on the government dole. It's all, to me, intertwined.
Right.
And this is the frustrating thing about what I see now happening. I started off my show today with a rant. Basically, when I got involved, when I was asked to be on the radio, I vowed never to be a headline reading radio show. I wanted to dig beneath the headlines, find out what was driving the issues, expose that in a way that caused people to go, oh my gosh, the end of the republic is right around the corner. If I value anything, the price that our forefathers paid on the battlefields all across the world in order to preserve America and preserve the shining city on the hill, we got to get back to that mentality, that people realize that the most important, I say this on your show time and time again, the most important political office is that of private citizen. And what allows them to get away with what they did in Georgia, it's a poster child for what's wrong with America, because, essentially these organizations, which, by the way, most of these organizations are led by people with questionable moral principles. I mean, you look at Disney. That organization is built, by people that are loyal to the LGBT community. In fact, are part of it.
Right.
And all of these organizations have that element in them now. And so when this activist element of the LGBT community organizes itself, you end up with a governor that bows to the almighty dollar instead of standing on principle, which is the problem with the California Republican Party. It's the problem with the Republican Party in general, because there's no more foundation on a set of principles, It's how do we get people elected? What do we need to do in order to make this happen, which is driving me nuts about what's going on with this presidential election cycle, because it's no longer about standing on principle and fundamental values and exposing the left and Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton for who they are. They're taking aim at each other. They're using their firepower on each other and giving the left everything it needs in the general election to defeat whoever the Republican opponent is that they bring up. We need to be organizing with all eyes on taking back, yes, the Oval Office, but beyond that, we need to engage as citizens in the role that we need to do in order to prop up the basic fundamental structure of our country. And it's disappearing.
I see it from the way you're saying. I look at things, especially with politics. Like I said, when I started my show, it was the idea of tearing down what I call the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. To me, you look at a government of a country, a nation, an empire, whatever you want to look at, and you look at the moral fiber of that entity, and it will tell you the type of government it has, and vice versa. And so when I look at things, I look at this LGBT thing as the LGBT community, as you said, does attack the family. What they're trying to do is they're trying to redefine the family. I believe the national anthem of the LGBT community is "We Are Family," from the Pointer Sisters. And if you go into any place where these people entertain, you go to Vegas and you go into the what do you want to call them, the cross-dressers, things like that. I've seen this stuff. I've seen the videos of it. I watch it. And I hate to admit this on the air here, but actually one of my favorite movies is The Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Hall. It does poke fun at both sides of the issue here. But my point being is that when I look at the LGBT movement itself, separated from the politics, it's all about affirmation. And affirmation is just another form of justification of rebellion. I want to rebel against the natural order of things because it makes me feel good. And for whatever reason, whatever brings a person into that lifestyle, they look for affirmation and confirmation, and they don't want to feel bad about what they're doing because inherently I think every human knows the difference between right and wrong, or we wouldn't have a moral gauge of right and wrong. So from that aspect, now you look at the political side of it is that the people that want to destroy the family for the idealism behind the collective, the utopian concept that you have central planners that determine how the family should be structured and run so that we obtain some kind of utopian order, we eliminate all the chaos and we bring everybody into the same frame of mind, and so therefore everything works and like a well-oiled machine. That kind of thing. So I look at it two ways here. So the LGBT community, which didn't really have any influence on very little until Barack Obama came into office, and he said, I'm going to manipulate and exploit everybody. I'll exploit the black community. I'll exploit the Hispanic community. I'll the LGBT community, whatever it is out there, the Democratic Socialist community, the Communist community, the Black Liberation Theology community. I'll just pander to all of them. And then collectively we'll be able to start moving into this ideal of creating utopia by having central planners determine what's right and wrong. So
there's at its essence, there's a basic hypocrisy in the position of the LBG community. Simply put, this bill would have protected pastors from having to perform same-sex marriages. Faith-based organizations like Christian schools would have been extended, protections from renting facilities to any organization that was contrary to its belief. Now, what they're saying is you have to void your faith-based principles as a business and serve this community that is not a part of your worldview. On the other hand, these people are not willing to give these organizations, faith-based organizations, the latitude to do what they want to do based on their principles. So what you have is the LGBT community forcing their principles on faith-based organizations, which is conversely exactly what the LGBT community is saying that these faith-based organizations are doing are doing in return, which they're not. They're just saying, hey, we want to be true to ourselves. Yeah, the LGBT community is saying, you can't be true to yourself. We're the ones that are true to ourselves.
Yeah, and that just supports what I was just saying. It's the idea. I mean, think about it. You and I, if a business place didn't want to do business with me, why would I want to do business with them? It's the street. It's the idea of I want to force churches to do things against their beliefs because I get affirmation from that. I feel that, you're the one that's wrong. You're the one that has to adjust to my way of thinking rather than me just accepting the fact that you don't accept my lifestyle. And I'll go find some homosexual preacher out there to do my wedding. No, I'm going to force somebody that doesn't believe in what I'm doing because it's that important to me that I be affirmed and I feel good about what I'm doing. I got to interrupt here. We got to go to break here. We're at the bottom of the hour. We've got Don Dix from Act for America, and right now it's time for Moments of Madness. We'll be right back. Today on Moments of Madness. The recent violence that has begun to appear across the country at Donald Trump rallies underscores the truth embedded in the old adage, those who failed to learn from history are too often the idiots that blindly repeat it. Beginning with the removal of Black Lives Matter activists in Georgia, who may have, in all fairness, just wanted to stand silently in protest during Trump's speech, to the sucker punching of a protester being removed for disrupting Trump's speech in North Carolina by a Willie Nelson-looking cowboy, to the 37 arrests for assault, including a very bloody protester in St. Louis, to the nearly riotous outburst in Chicago that led to the hospitalization of several attendees, among them a MoveOn.org organizer. These series of incidences resurrect for those of us older to remember the 1968 Democratic National Convention. The 68 Democratic Convention was a brokered convention brought about by Lyndon Johnson declining to run for re-election, along with the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy within a month of each other. Kennedy was running a close second to then Vice President Hubert Humphrey, who had garnered establishment delegates outside traditional primary protocol. Humphrey was the establishment choice. Kennedy, an anti-Vietnam supporter, the people's savior. Also present at the 68 convention was the anti-establishment movement Youth International Party, known as YIPPY, led by Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, and the National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, called MOBI, led by David Dellinger. Over the course of 4 days, violence routinely erupted on the streets of Chicago, resulting in 589 arrests, 119 and 100 injuries to police and protesters, respectively, and the death of a 17-year-old stopped for a curfew violation who pulled a weapon and fired upon officers. Here's the madness. Parallels between the 68 convention and what we see playing out today are more than eerie. For instance, there was once again the prospect of a DNC brokered convention, this time to ensure an establishment nominee wins with superdelegates should the current frontrunner with more than a shady past be indicted. Her opponent is a popular socialist lauded by the college crowd who feels the burn. Just as chilling is the even more serious prospect of a GOP brokered convention to stop a populist who refuses to play by establishment rules and in doing so has captured demographics establishment candidates can only dream of. Following the 68 convention, another radical group formed at Ann Arbor, Michigan by Students for a Democratic Society called SDS. Founded by a radicalized Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground capitalized on the anti-Vietnam movement and the rise of the Black Panthers. The Weathermen, as they came to be called, participated in bombings of police stations and government installations like the Pentagon, along with riots that coincided with the trial of the Chicago 7, those who had been arrested on conspiracy charges the year before during the 68 Democratic Convention. Today, college campuses across the country have their own underground, Black Lives Matter, many of them who are being trained by MoveOn.org, who we now see showing up in larger and larger number at Trump rallies. The only impartiality they display is the fact they squeeze in at an occasional Clinton event on their quest to whine and moan about their identity dilemma. And who do these self-proclaimed disenfranchised college youths look for inspiration? None other than Bernie Sanders, self-avowed democratic socialist who spews forth his own revolutionary rhetoric of government overthrow through redistribution economics. Yes, the parallels are as uncanny as they are eerie.
Even more frightening, though, is the prospect this time around. While everyone acknowledges the inmates are running the asylum, no one in charge seems to care enough to put any of them back in their straitjackets. My guess is they just want to watch history repeat itself. Unfortunately, there are enough idiots running the streets to make it so. This is John Matthews for Moments of Madness. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardosa. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardosa Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Hey, and we're back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews. I've got Don Dix from Act for America, one of our conservative panel members here, giving his opinion here on this ruling of what's going on out there with the Georgia piece of legislation here that was vetoed by the governor out there. And let's get back to here our topic here in terms of how what this thing means. I guess what I was trying to point out, Don, is I just really believe that the political side of these arguments, it all fits into a narrative. The narrative is, of course, that the collective is better than the individual. And then when we talk about how the left puts their pieces in there through either deconstructionism or redefinition of what, as you were saying, like the family. The family is being redefined. The family isn't about a man and a woman come together and through procreation the family multiplies, and then based on the principles of how we were designed by a creator, that sets the moral structure. Now it's like the family can be whatever society determines the family can be. We can have same-sex parents adopting children. We can have lesbians being artificially inseminated. Whatever combination things, but it's still the family. It's just our version of the family versus the creator's version. So I get that part of it, but it does fit into the bigger narrative because everything that is being fed to these specific demographics, whether it be based on color, race, gender preferencing, or whatever, it's taking elements of what these people are looking for in terms of personal affirmation and basically saying, sacrifice that affirmation or sacrifice that individuality, become part of the collective, and you will achieve what it is you're looking for. And now this affirmation of who you are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and we're not even saying, I mean, shouldn't it be a right? I mean, shouldn't I, as a business owner, shouldn't I, as a clergy, have the right to marry whomever it is that I mean, for instance, when you want to get married in certain churches, they don't just automatically sign you up and schedule your ceremony. You actually have to go through a process.
Right.
And, and I guess in essence, show that, you are, where your faith is, where you're, where you are. They want to know it's a good matchup too.
Right.
So, and I mean, I did this in my first marriage, which, I'm now divorced from, but I mean, it was a 15-week course through the church, or process. I don't want to say course, where we got together and explored, what does, being married involve? What's the commitment? How are we as a family unit going to function? All sorts of things. So it wasn't a foregone conclusion that I could just, call up the church and get married. Now, I know that there are some churches that do function like that, but, that was our decision. Why is it that, churches are forced, or businesses that have a faith-based moral code are forced to not discriminate against, but to compromise their own values? We're not saying to gay couples, you can't do something. Find a business that's friendly to your look. If I walk into a business and don't like the way you said this a moment ago, and don't like the way I'm treated just as a customer, let alone, some of these other issues, what do? I don't call up the state and say, force them to serve me in the way that I want to be served.
Right.
I do what is done in a capitalistic, sort of culture. I walk out the door, find a business that, will serve me the way I want to be served.
Yeah.
And I might let the manager know on the way out of that business why I'm leaving. That's what you do. That's how you vote economically. No one's forcing, these gay couples to get married at a church. This is about making churches bend to the value system of the LBGT community.
Right. And that's really, you summed it up pretty well there, the point I'm trying to make. I was thinking, I once had a conversation with a friend of mine. Well, it used to be a friend of mine. After the conversation was over, I was labeled a bigot and a racist, and I've never heard from the guy again. And we were talking about the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And I was presenting the exact same argument that you were presenting in terms of being able to discriminate who you wanted to have into your business establishment. And they said, well, the 1964 Civil Rights Act says that you cannot discriminate based on color, sex, or whatever, or color. That was Civil Rights Act was about color. It was about race. Okay, so I said, well, let's look at this scenario here. If I open up a bar down here, down the street here, and I call it John's Fat White Redneck Bar, okay, and so I got fat white rednecks coming into my bar, and somebody that comes into my bar is black, and that black person is not treated well by the people in my establishment. Or maybe I refuse to serve that person. Okay, so that person can now go and file a claim that I am discriminating against them. Whereas I'm saying, well, wait a minute, I'm exercising my right to refuse service to whoever it is I wanted to not serve. Now, there's one of two arguments here. One is that the government steps in, the law steps in, and they force me to do something that I don't want to do against my will, which only strengthens my conviction that these people are not good people to begin with. Or what happens is the word gets around the community that John owns a fat white redneck bar and he's a racist. And so people do not come into my establishment. So what happens is I either change my views or I go out of business. And we don't need the law to do that. And so that was my argument. Of course, the guy said, well, you're just saying, well, there should be no Civil Rights Act. I said, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying as a private business owner, I should have the right to decide who I want to do business with. And if it is such that my views are contrary to the social paradigm, then what it means is the social aspect of this is people don't accommodate my place of business. I end up going out of business, problem solved. And we don't need to interject the law. We don't need to start forcing values on people one way or the other. And so that based on that, this idea of now saying, okay, I'm going to be able to go into a church and force that church to perform a ceremony if I choose to do so, if for no other reason, out of spite for the most part. And that's really what it is. It's spite and that affirmation thing. I want to give one quick example here, another quick story here, but we got to go to a break. I'm on my short break here. And when we come back, we'll finish with Don here. I'm going to relay to you a story that I personally was involved in terms of this homosexual unions, and then we'll get Don's feedback on that, and then we'll probably be towards the end of the show by then. So stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right, General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardosa. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardosa Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
And we're back, and you're listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, mad prophet of the airways. I've got Don Dix from Act for America with us, and as we come into our closing segment here, I want to relate a story to you, Don, to kind of illustrate what we're dealing with here in terms of the church situation and this law being vetoed, because the governor of Georgia basically is claiming or saying, we don't really have to worry about this. And I guess his thought is religious freedom. Who's going to walk into a church and say, hey, I want you to perform a marriage? I think that's his thought process. But I know from personal experience how this stuff comes down. We had several years ago in our church a young homosexual woman, and she was in the process of changing her gender identity. And we brought her into the church. We accepted her as part of the church because that's what church is. Church is a hospital for sinners. It's not a club for saints. And so we've always embraced the fact that when people come into the church, we all have our baggage. We all have our issues, whether it be homosexuality or maybe you like to steal a lot, maybe you're an adulterer, whatever it is, drug addiction, the whole 9 yards. And so we brought her in, and she was very well liked by most of the people in the church. And what happened was at some point in time, she met a young girl, and this is the twist of this. The young girl was a pastor's daughter from another church back east. And they began a relationship, and during the course of all this young lady came to us and asked us if we would perform the marriage ceremony. And my pastor said, well, I can't do that. She said, well, I'm a member of your church. And he said, yeah, you are a member of my church, but I can't condone the actions. Just because you're a member of our church doesn't exempt you from, God's word, that kind of thing. Right. And you're doing what you're doing. And yes, we love you, but we're not going to condone what you're doing because we know biblically it's not right. Well, I remember she ended up leaving the church. And she found another church back east that would marry her with this other woman. And, you know, I get reports from them now and then. That's just pure gossip, so it's not worth going into. But I remember one of the things that she said to me when I talked to her after she left the church, and I had a conversation with her, and I was asking her how she was doing and everything, and she goes, "Oh, well, I finally found my family." And so when you were talking earlier about the family, that thought, that conversation triggered in my mind. And that is what the homosexual community refers to itself as, is the family. They are family. And so that you get into that redefinition and everything else about what family values are, the same as saying the idea that lust is the same as love. You know, it is just we redefine it, we deconstruct it. I feel safe and secure with the person I'm with. It doesn't matter if they're the same sex. Therefore, it's love, rather than the idea that homosexuality, if it was all just about love and not sex, we wouldn't be referring to sexuality in the definition at all. So it's just interesting. Now, do you think that this is going to set a precedence that's going to be able to go after these other states that you mentioned earlier? That they're going to be able to now appeal these laws in other states and say you can't do this anymore?
Well, clearly, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what goes on inside the calculus of, them advancing their agenda. Certainly, you would think it would have emboldened them a little bit. They would definitely notch this as a success. But I do know that they're going. The Georgia legislature is going to go back and redraft this, and they're not done with it. I mean, this bill has been 3 years in the making, and actually, the bill that was put on the governor's desk was a watered down version of something that had emerged earlier in the process. So this bill that came out was actually a compromise between in the conference between the Senate and the Assembly or the House there in Georgia. So. The authors of it, an interview I was listening to said, we're not done. We're going to go back. We're going to, try and figure out, what strategy we should move forward to. So, the LGBT activism community, they may go after other states, but I know that Georgia is going to continue to be a battlefront on this issue.
Right. Yeah. And that leads to the other aspect of these things, these types of arguments. I've been doing a lot of study lately on the 14th Amendment, because this particular law is the argument that is coming from the LGBT community is based on the 14th Amendment. The fact that we've taken an amendment that was established for the purpose of allowing natural-born previously black or slaves, blacks from slaves, how do I say that? Previously enslaved families, natural-born citizens being allowed to vote and participate in the process of being an American. They were supposed to be entitled. That's what it was about. It was about the Civil War, the Reconstruction, and everything else. And now that has been applied, and is so easily applied. And the arguments are made, well, the 14th Amendment says that you can't discriminate against somebody because of race, color, sex, sexual preference, or anything. And it doesn't say anything like that. So it's just being mutated. So I've been studying this stuff and looking at it, and it seems like, it's like the 14th Amendment is covering any demographic that is created for any reason. To say, well, you got to give this to me because you're giving it to them, and I'm just like them. I am my own entity. I am my own demographic, and so it's just being universally applied. And that, in and of itself, when we talk about things like the Supreme Court and the balance of the Supreme Court, in line with what you were talking about earlier, before we came on the show, you mentioned to me the ruling out there with the Supreme Court today, a 4-4 standoff, which means it reverts back to the Ninth Circuit Court, and which means the union wins, that kind of thing.
Right.
How do you think these types of things, does this not just fit into the narrative of the left that, hey, you know what, we need to confirm a Supreme Court justice, or things like this are just going to continue to happen?
Well, sure. I mean, the judiciary is a big problem in the United States because they become a judiciary not of rendering opinions, but of rendering rulings.
Right.
And we know that it's courts, should not be rendering rulings. They should be rendering opinions. Rulings are what is issued by monarchies, which is what we got away from. in this in the governor's transcript of his talk, he actually doesn't speak to the Constitution. He goes back and he speaks to the Declaration of Independence, and he says at the end of one of his paragraphs that they, meaning the founding fathers, had previously proclaimed that in the Declaration of Independence that man's creator has endowed all men with certain inalienable rights, including liberty, which embraces religious liberty. They made it clear that those liberties were given by God and not by man's government. Therefore, it was unnecessary to enumerate in statute or constitution what those liberties included. Well, all he needed to do was go and read the next sentence in the Declaration of Independence, and it's the sentence that says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So, the fact that he's saying that, it's sort of codified in the Declaration of Independence, he's picking and choosing. He's not taking the very next sentence says is that we have governments to secure those rights. They don't give them, they secure them. And so he's abdicating his role as a governor to secure the religious liberty of these institutions.
Yeah, and as you were saying before, I guess the point I was leading up to is just what you're saying. The study that I'm doing on the 14th Amendment, the common opinion from a lot of the people out there is saying basically we no longer judge by what the Constitution says. We now begin to, as you said, issue rulings based on precedents of other cases. Other cases now becomes case law rather than constitutional law. And so we can go out and pick and find a case out there that was ruled in our favor, and we can say, based on this is what we should be doing now, rather than what the Constitution says. So, yeah, so it's a very messed up process that we're in right now. Let's hope that if Ted Cruz doesn't win the presidency, that somebody has enough sense to appoint him to the Supreme Court.
Boy, there's a lot of appointments that need to be done, and hopefully whoever it is does a great job with nominating a good cabinet. And, if Donald Trump is the bully that ends up being president, hopefully he uses his bully pulpit to tear down Washington. But there's something in the back of my head that says that's not going to happen.
Yeah. I think what we may have is a guy that really focuses a lot on fiscal issues and may do some good there. Social issues will be put on the back burner, and everything will just be one big quagmire. We're out of time here, Don. I want to give you time to push your whatever it is you're doing lately, your website, and everything else that's going on.
Well, as always, my focus is national security. Ultimately, that over the last 7 days, there have been horrendous attacks by Islamic quote-unquote radicals. I would call them fundamentalists. But, the work that we're doing with Act for America is shining a light on that national security issue. The website is actforamerica.org. Folks can get information, stay up to date. Both, our Facebook pages, are more of a blog. And go out and like our Facebook pages, stay in touch with us, and find a chapter in your area and get involved.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it so much for you coming on, Don.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure. God bless.
All right. God bless you. Okay, guys, we're done for tonight. And as I mentioned yesterday, we'll be gone for the next couple of days here. We're going up to Sacramento to participate in Franklin Graham's Decision America up at the Capitol building up in Sacramento. We'll be back live Friday, but you can come to our website, theconservativesyndicate.net, and listen to the archives. Or if you're out there in Shake and Wake Radio or any of the other affiliates that we have out there, High Plains Radio, Patriot News Network. Let's see what else. Well, there's a bunch of them out there. Go to our website. You can find out every affiliate that we're on, and we'll be streaming from there. So God bless you all. We'll talk to you on Friday. We'll give you a report what we saw up in Sacramento. God bless you. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Conservative Syndicate, the globally syndicated, politically incorrect talk show that seeks to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. We want to make you aware you can find and access all of our show archives at our website, theconservativesyndicate.net, as well as our broadcast stations and times. That's the conservativesyndicate.net. We so appreciate you taking time to tune in, and we so look forward to continuing to bring you the best and uncompromised talk radio available on the net today. And remember, folks, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down in life. It only matters how many times you get up.
I'm John Matthews, signing off until next time, right here on the Conservative Syndicate. God bless you, and may God continue to bless America.